I'm Michelle, and we're going to talk about how I and you can use mindfulness, compassion, and connection to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Hi, I'm Michelle, and I help parents who want to parent peacefully and calmly to foster strong relationships with their children and at times find it really hard. When my kids were small, I found myself so overwhelmed and burnt out that not only did I struggle to respond peacefully or playfully, I got caught in an awful yelling pattern, followed by overwhelming shame because yelling was the last thing that I wanted to do. So now let's talk about how I and you can use the science of mindfulness and self compassion to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Today's topic: why parenting feels so stressful and what we can do about it. So, in my work with a hand in hand parenting coach, um, I've been working with various hand in hand parenting coaches for, I don't know, 11 minus like 8 or 9 years. And at some point, working with one of these hand in hand parenting coaches, I learned that when my kids get rigid about things, like when they were little, like which plate they got, they wanted the green plate, but they got the blue plate, and that was just unacceptable. Or their cookie was broken, is an example that they like to talk about in hand, and they just like can't handle the fact that their cookie's broken. When now that my kids are older, it's like, no, baby, you can't go to a friend's house today because of blah, blah, blah. And they get really upset and they just can't handle that. They can't handle that no, or they can't handle that it has to be later the same day or the next day, or when screen time is going to be. It's not going to be now, it's going to be in an hour. Following through with chores. When they get really rigid about something that they need or want or have or has to be right now, that is a signal that they are carrying some big emotions inside. And that helps me because then, one, I can be more understanding about their kind of like, sort of feel strange behavior that kind of comes out of nowhere. And I can help them with those emotions that they're carrying inside so that they can find their flexibility again. And at some point, I had this light bulb moment that if this was true for the kids, it might also be true for me. If I get really rigid about things, oh, maybe I'm carrying some emotions inside that I'm struggling with. This has really been a game changer for me. It might seem small and insignificant, but let me just give you some examples because I'm sure as soon as I start giving examples, you'll be like, yeah, for sure. Right? Because it's human nature. So things like my bed being made. This used to be like a tension point between myself and my husband. Like I wanted the bed made every day. And if he didn't make the bed, then I would get really bent out of shape. And another one would be my kids putting their shoes away. They love to put the shoes. Do any of your kids do this? Right outside the closet that they're supposed to put the shoe in. Like literally sometimes the shoes are touching the door. And I'm like, why can't you just put the shoes in the closet? It doesn't make sense why this is so difficult. Or the backpacks being put in the closet versus on the floor right beside the closet, and on and on and on, right? So some days it's like, oh, you see it, it's annoying, you roll your eyes and you move on. Other days you're like, I've told you how many times the shoes go in the closet. Why are you putting your shoes right next to the closet? And you find yourself getting really worked up and really angry, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, right? And it might on the surface look like, well, maybe it's because I've told them 100 times to do this and they still haven't done it. And that's probably is true, like that is part of the picture, definitely. And there might be something else that's at play as well, which is really helpful to understand. So I help parents walk through this same process in the Yelling to Connecting course. And I loved listening as parents shared realizations of how they didn't realize how much stress they were carrying or how it was like popping up in different moments in their parenting. And then they were able to make this shift in how they saw those tense parenting moments because they had new knowledge and perspective. So let's help you do the same. So I want you to think about those irritants, right? Like, what's your example of the shoes outside of the closet door? What's your example of the backpack? What are the things that you ask your kids to do over and over? And because they're kids, and that's totally normal developmentally for them not to do the thing that you want them to do every time, or even most of the time, they're learning, and we're hoping by the time they're 25 and out of the house that they will be putting their things where they're supposed to, right? So, what are your irritants? What are those things for you? And get curious. Are there times that they bother you more than others? Notice even in this last week or couple of weeks, what were some times that you walked past, whatever your example of the shoes on the floor are, and what are times that you couldn't walk past it one more time and you had to say something? And maybe it came out more rigid and intense and inflexible and more than you wanted it to, right? So notice and get curious. And you might ask yourself, what is getting triggered for me here? Why is this bothering me? This is the real question. Why is this bothering me more today than it was yesterday? Why is this bothering me more today than it has been all week? What is happening here? So there might be something, or you might ask yourself, is there something that's causing me more stress in my life? Is there something that's happening that I'm more stressed today than I was yesterday? When I ask myself this question, I mean, some of it's the most basic things like, I didn't get any sleep last night. I'm really tired. Oh, that's why I can't handle the shoes on the floor today, right? Or, um, oh, yeah, that thing at work is really bothering me. It's really bothering me more than I realized. That's really helpful information because we all know about suppressing emotions, but we don't always know that we're doing it. In Emily Nagoski's book, actually, Emily and Amelia Nagoski, they're twins. They wrote a book called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Response Cycle. And they explain in detail how and why we get tripped up with suppressing our emotions. So some parents say, maybe it's just me. Other parents have it together. Maybe I'm the only one that like freaks out randomly about these things. Absolutely not. You are normal. You are 100% normal. And we just don't often get to see other people's freak out moments. And if we don't have close relationships with people, we might not hear about them either. So it is 100% normal to have stress inside that's and more than what we realize, that we're carrying more than what we realize. It's impacting more than we realize. That is normal. And we have to do it at times, like we have to suppress our emotions at times, right? We have to suppress our emotions at work oftentimes. We can't kind of come in with our emotions all hanging out. We can't oftentimes with our kids. We have to be there for them. So we have to kind of contain whatever is happening for us. And that is normal and healthy, but we might not realize that we're not actually ever giving ourselves an opportunity to deal with the stress. And so it's really important that we notice when something is really deeply distressing us. And another, as well as suppressing emotions, there's also avoidance when we kind of wish or hope or we wait for something to change on its own. And this Emily and Amelia Nagoski describe as we are abdicating responsibility for creating change. And that is kind of disempowering, right? We're taking away our own knowledge and power to make changes in our life because we're kind of wishing and hoping that something would change. Another kind of avoidance is just numbing out, right? We all do this. We go on our screens, we numb out with food, shopping, all different kinds, alcohol. There's so many different ways that we numb out, and it's normal. However, we just don't want to get stuck in numbing out, right? We maybe even can intentionally numb out at times. And if we're mindful about it, like I've had enough today, like I really need to watch this show and to not think about what's ever's happening. That's mindfully being compassionate, actually. But if we don't know we're doing it, we can get stuck in a habit where we're always numbing out. And then the only time we realize that something's wrong is when we find ourselves yelling or losing it in one way or another. So we just don't want to get stuck in these different kind of things like avoidance or suppressing our emotions. And then it's helpful to think about what's happening with our kiddo if that's happening with us. So for them, they might feel like they're getting blasted out of nowhere, right? Like why am I getting yelled at like I just, kicked the dog when all I did was leave my shoes outside the door? Why is mom all of a sudden like a 10 when all I did was this? So they might feel like it's really unfair. And then they're more likely to push back, right? And rebel, like, hey, this isn't fair. Or they might people please and just sort of like, okay, I'm sorry, right? And they're kind of like afraid and they just want to please us. And neither one are great. Neither one do we want to happen, right? We want our reaction to match whatever is happening. So again, experiencing stress is normal, and many of us live with chronic stress, which makes it really challenging to complete the stress response cycle. And we might falsely believe that everyone else has it together, and that if we don't have it together, that we're broken or flawed or not enough, which is just not true. And that's part of why I share my own examples, because I want these experiences to be normalized. I want people to know that the real life is messy. It's not perfect. So a quick win. When you notice your edginess, when you notice that you're getting short or rigid, let this be a cue that you might be carrying more stress than you realized or difficult emotions, and they're bothering you more than you realized. And then when you have a moment, take the time to turn inward and get curious about what is happening with you. This week's play idea: dance off. Okay, so take turns with your kids. They get to pick their favorite song. You get to pick your favorite song, and you have a dance competition. And you dance your crazy dance and have fun and be, the more laughter, the better. And then they get a turn. And of course, there's no winning, right? It's just a way of being silly. And bonus, you're moving your body, which is one of the ways of completing the stress response cycle. So it's a win-win. And kids love things like this. So I'd love for you to try this out and let me know how it goes, or give me your own creative play idea, especially with dance and music. Because if you share them with me, then I can share them with the community and we can all kind of learn from each other. And before you go, I have a free gift for you, the guided audio pause and regroup, AKA the rage break. And this is me walking you through steps that you can take in the moment when you're on edge, when you're trying not to lose it, or maybe you've just lost it and you're like trying to rein it in and you need a moment to regroup. And I walk you through offloading that stress that's in your body in a healthy way that's not harming anybody. I walk you through shifting your thoughts and regrouping so you can rejoin your kids. And I think it's about 7 minutes long. I might try to shorten it because we don't have that long to kind of like regroup. Um, I'd love for you to check it out. You can, hopefully, it's in the show notes. And if it's not, you can find it on compassionateheartmindfullife.com and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. A reminder, this content is intended for educational purposes only and should not be used as a replacement for private psychotherapy services. Compassionate Heart Mindful Life does not provide psychotherapy services in any capacity. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist, and this is not therapy and should not be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need mental health treatment, please find a qualified professional in your area. Thank you so much for listening. The light in me sees the light in you. Be well.